Today's episode is one you're going to want to bookmark, replay, and maybe even pause to take notes. We're joined by the incredible Shulamit. She's an educator, trauma-informed coach, and founder of the Entrepreneur's Therapist. And we are diving deep into all things psychology of money, trauma, and how those two forces play out in business.
We're pulling back the curtain on all things emotional and oftentimes uncomfortable layers of money, how your early experiences really shape what we earn, spend, and relate to work. We are also unpacking the realities of capitalism, of business, and really unlearning that scarcity, guilt, and over responsibility.
This one's honest, validating, and the amount of times I said, oh, that's why I do that, and had those thoughts is nuts. So let's get into it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Find Your Fuse podcast. Today, we are joined by the very, very lovely Shula, and we cannot wait to dive in. She is the Entrepreneur's Therapist, and we can't wait to hear more about that and pepper her with so many questions.
Yes.
So, Shula, welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So we have, like Kelly said, tons of questions. We're really excited when you reached out to us and you were like, I love to chat all things trauma and money and like the psychology of. I was like, yes, that. We need more of those conversations because I know Kelly and I, even as individuals before we started Fuse Agency and when we came together to start a business together, like money mindset work was and still is a really big daily conversation that we have. Like quite literally before this recording, we were having a money chat because we have a new intern and we were doing budgeting, and I'm like, money mindset just never goes away. So we have plenty of questions to ask you with that. But before we dive into our questions, can you introduce yourself and tell our listeners who you are, what you do, and how you found your way to that work?
Sure. So my full name is Shulamit Ber Levtov, but as you two are doing, you're welcome to call me Shula. And I was running a successful business, a successful group practice, but the crap hit the fan because the mental health load of running a business, it's very high stakes, high demand, as you all know, took such a toll. The impact of that took such a toll on my mental health that I actually acted out of integrity with myself, which is pain. Like I can still feel, because it's not what we want for ourselves in our businesses, right? And so I yelled at my husband, my beloved, about taking the garbage out. We don't even have that kind of relationship. It's like, what? But then worse than that, one of my team had done something that had consequences for a client. And I, instead of addressing it with them one-on-one, did it in front of the team. And that's very harmful. It's interpersonally harmful. It's harmful to the team. And it's not in alignment with my values or what we had as values as a community together. And I'm telling my therapist, like, ooh, these people, they did these things. How dare they? I'm so mad. And he's like, well, yeah, but let's take a look at how you're behaving. He said, I think maybe you need to take a break. And I was like, yeah, I was thinking I could maybe take a week. And he's like, no. No. So of course, I want to take my therapist seriously. I take a step back. I breathe and think about this. And I see actually what I need to do is exit the business. And
How
so
huge.
It is huge. It is huge. It requires all kinds of inner stuff. So as I'm sitting home now, I've exited the business. I've taken a month's stress leave and I'm asking myself, what am I going to do? And I'm thinking about my own experience with mental health and entrepreneurship and what I've heard from all my entrepreneurial colleagues about how hard it is to run a business on your mental health. And then I looked at the research and it's not just me, it's a thing. I was like, oh, that's how the Entrepreneur's Therapist was born, because we need therapists who understand entrepreneurship.
2 follow-up statements on that. One,
Sure.
It is true how it's a thing. It's being an entrepreneur and mental health are so deeply interconnected. And I've said this probably 1,000,001 times on this podcast, and we'll say it 1,000,001 more times. I didn't truly know what personal development work was or mental health was, but I didn't know what personal development was or the mindset work and all of that until I got into entrepreneurship, because it was not something that was encouraged to me in my corporate life at all, or even in traditional society of like high school, college, all of that. So it is crazy because it's like I thought I was signing up to run a business and do my own thing and go on my own path and like be a creative and design things. And it was like, you're signing up for full-time therapy because that's basically what entrepreneurship is.
Yeah, I've heard it even said, running a business is 99% mindset, 1% skill.
It's
And
sure
I think
stepping into the fire. It's
Mhm.
100%. Yeah, like you're forged in the fire of entrepreneurship for sure.
So my other question to that is, what was that like? And how did you get to that moment of, oh, this isn't just a break. This is, I have to exit my business. How did that feel in your body? Did you battle that? Did you try to say no to it? Like, what was that moment like for you?
Well, the truth is that I should have done it a year earlier, but I felt such loyalty to my associates, the folks whose livelihoods. Well, this is it. This is the stupid shit you tell yourself when you don't, like I'm thinking they depend on me. And to a certain degree, yes. I mean, as a business owner, you don't want to screw your people over. You want to include them in the circle of care in your decisions around the business. But I think my mistake was that I was overly loyal. I was telling myself a story that put my importance greater than it was in the situation. And so the year before, I was like, oh, I have to do something differently. So I fought it for a whole year trying to figure out, do I do this? Do we do that? Do we bring in training? Do I change? Blah, 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 blah. And it was really all the kind of turning around and trying to figure it out when the I was trying to avoid the truth, which was it wasn't working for me the way it was. And the more I fought it, the worse it got, which is what led to where I was at the end. But when it was the end, there were a couple of days after my therapist said to me that like, no, I needed to take a leave, that I really was in the burn about that. Because of course, when you think about who am I, your business is your identity, right? It's your mission in the world. And all of a sudden your identity, you've lost your identity and you've lost your sense of mission or purpose. Like the rug is pulled out from underneath you. But then after I cooked in that for a couple of days, really hard, that's when the epiphany came that that's what I really needed to do was exit. So it was painful and difficult. And I fought it for much longer than I really should have.
Because it's scary. It brings that question of, okay, like you said, this is so intertwined with my identity. And two, like, what's next? How do I, because also to be real, like, it's not like we just work these businesses for fun. Yes, that's part of what drives you as an entrepreneur. There's a passion there, but also we have bills to pay. We live in a world
It's
where
bread and butter. This ties into what we were going to talk about, which is the trauma of money.
yes, let's dive in.
And I'm not even going to tell you my story. Maybe it'll come up as we go. But you've hit on the core issue around the trauma of money, which is that money under capitalism, which is the economic system in which we operate, equates survival and self-worth. And under capitalism, yes, right? Under capitalism, our self-worth and our survival is under attack on the daily because capitalism depends on scarcity and lack for people to engage in it, for it to make money. So when your self-worth and your survival are threatened on a daily basis, this can become traumatizing to your nervous system. And then instead of responding from the whole of yourself, you respond quite normally, as we would expect any human being under threat to respond, from your fight, flight, freeze, fawn responses. And those are partial responses that are life-saving in the moment. But when you're running a business, you can't only be in the survival tunnel. You have to be able to look up out of the tunnel and see the whole picture and bring your whole self. And that, in a nutshell, is the essence of the trauma of money.
I am obsessed with that. And like I'm fascinated by this type of work, and I've done some of my own like reading and whatnot on it. Because it's so interesting and it's so true. And when we live in constant survival, like it becomes less life-saving because it's like it's not giving you access to your entire mind to create
100%.
to make cognitive decisions. The other piece of this, and like maybe this is a conspiracy theory, but also like you said, for all of us to continue functioning in the capitalist society that we live in, it feeds off of the fear and the trauma. And that is why personal development and mindset work and all of these different things maybe aren't introduced in the traditional society ways, whether it be through high school, college, corporate jobs, because they don't want you to become enlightened on this stuff. They want you to be able to continue on this hamster wheel because you continue to be a worker at that point.
Well, it isn't a conspiracy. It's actually economics. If you look at the definition of the term economics, it's the science of scarcity and how to influence human decision making under conditions of scarcity.
Hate that.
No.
It's not a conspiracy. It's actually how it is. There's a whole department of economics. Every university has one. What is marketing except exploiting human nature to make them buy stuff? It started in PR, and that started because some guy, this is from the first 45 minutes of the documentary called Century of the Self, which you can get for free on YouTube, and I highly recommend anybody watch.
Be watching that.
Some guy talked to Freud because he wanted to understand how to influence people's opinions. And it's fascinating. So like, this is not to say that those of us who are in the system, who are trying to make our way, including marketers, including you and me, because I have a business, I have to share with people what I do in order for them to pay me, right? Yeah. We're good-hearted people, and we are also functioning in a system that's we have to navigate these exploitative systems to the best of our ability, but we are still swimming in that water. Those of us who are operating under capitalism, we're still going to struggle, even if we're doing things differently, because capitalism is capitalism, right?
Yeah. At the end of the day, we still have to participate in it. At the end of the day, good-hearted, not good-hearted, you still need that money at the end to pay the bill.
And I want to make a distinction that's really important when we're talking about a critique of capitalism, by the way, separating commerce from capitalism. Okay? Because commerce has existed for thousands of years. It's the exchange of money for goods and services. That's not capitalism. That's commerce. Capitalism is exploitation of the labor of the individual in order for someone to accumulate capital and create wealth. The problem is exploitation and accumulation of wealth, not making money. Because I'm all about the monies, for me, for you, for all of us, right? We need it. But I'm not for exploitation. Exploitation is like, no.
And same. I think that, and what's interesting is I think that also has become, even though it is separate, has become interconnected in so many ways. And that is where we get the negative affirmations that have come to be of money of all evil and don't be greedy.
Actually,
and don't want more.
That's not even the root. The root of that is Christianity. In particular, it's Calvinism. And it's a particular kind. So I'm not painting Christians with a wide brush, but the folks who came to the US initially held a particular view of the world, of material reality, of the human body, that established the ground for how we think about things in North America. It's much more intense in the US than it is in Canada. And so it is strictly from that particular kind of Christianity called Calvinism that we get all those ideas. So it's important to know the history and where things come from and to name them for what they are. And capitalism glommed onto that and made hay with it, literally.
Yeah. That's actually fascinating. I did not know that with the Calvinism piece. Growing up in a religious household, for sure, I know that I heard those affirmations and those things. And so I've known the connection between religion and money in that way, but I did not know it started with Calvinism specifically. That is fascinating. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's fascinating.
So one thing that we really do enjoy doing earlier on in our episodes is touching on duality, because this is something you may know well in entrepreneurship as well. Like the highlight reels are high and the lows can be low, and sometimes they're happening at the same time. So we always like to highlight that as a moment because everyone's experiencing it. So we have a couple duality questions, something on the positive end, something not so positive end to ask. You want to kick it off, Cal?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah. So question number 1, what is a money moment in your business that felt surprisingly emotional?
Oh, money's always emotional.
That's a great answer. I agree.
I mean, there's no one unique moment, although this ties into the story of why I do money work with entrepreneurs. One that was really like such a deliverance, like such a like a weight lifted, was, as you may or may not know, I'm a certified facilitator in the trauma of money method. And in the process of, because it's a personal growth and then there's the professional training. So you have to go through the personal growth first. And the moment when I realized that I had dyscalculia, which is a math learning disability, and that I was not bad with money, I was bad with numbers. I was like, what? And I mean, even today, I can feel the joy of being off the hook for being bad with money. And when I saw that, then I could look back over my life at all the things that I have been told I was, and act like I lived in a shelter with my daughter after I fled an abusive relationship. I lived on social assistance. I've lived under the poverty line. I have managed money extremely well given my circumstances. It's just I can't fucking do math.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of speaking to my soul a little bit.
I was gonna
It's
say,
like
that's
gives me an epiphany in
profound.
this moment, because I always assume, and bad with money isn't necessarily the words that I come up with when I think about me and my relationship with money. Can I be avoidant? We've worked on this, but like in the past, can I be avoidant? Different things like that, sure. But bad with math is something that I have aligned with for a very long time, and I'm honestly working on not saying that anymore, because why even continue that narrative? But I love that distinction.
For me, it frees me to say I'm bad with math. It gives me permission. It gets me off the hook. Because, and I literally have trauma around my math learning disorder, because in the 60s and 70s when I went to school, well, they were only beginning to understand learning disorders and only beginning to look at, not even looking at girls, right? So and I mean, these people were good-hearted, but it was abusive the way I was treated, because I was told I was stupid. I wasn't working hard enough. I wasn't concentrating. I got tutoring. What was my problem? I was obviously fucking around because I wasn't getting it. And so for me to say, I can't get it because my brain won't get it, gets me off the hook from having to get it and allows me to ask for help.
Yep.
I can actually say, I can't do this. And so I don't have to. It frees me. It's not continuing that I'm hopeless and helpless and can't do anything. But when you tell yourself, like before this, when I would say I'm bad with money, then I would feel ashamed. I would collapse. I would make bad decisions. I would be like, not looking,
We're gonna
all
ignore
the things. Right. So it really, and that just shows how idiosyncratic the mental health stuff is. That it's not the words, it's where it comes from. And what works for one person won't work for another. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that was actually something I was going to point out with that too. It's this beautiful moment of realizing, okay, this for me is what feels freeing. That exact thing might not feel freeing for someone else in the same way, but it's just making the point of like, there is going to be something that's freeing for every person, and it's figuring out what that is for you. And I really love that. And I also love what you pointed out with why it was freeing for you, of like, I can't do this, so I don't have to do this, so I can get help. We all think we have to do everything all the time, especially as business owners, especially when you're first starting and you don't have unlimited budgets to hire out everything in your business. Because like, yeah, that would solve a lot of problems, but that's not reality for many people, especially in the early days. But having that moment of like, okay, I don't have to do this is incredibly freeing.
This is part of this is like, I would say 50% of the challenge that brings women to work with me, that bring them into the chair, metaphorically speaking, or onto the screen to work with me, is that they're shaming and blaming themselves for finding hard things hard. They think, well, I can, so therefore I should. And if I don't, then there's something wrong with me, right? And that's like, I'm seeing you, Kelly, placing your hand on your heart space, right? Because it is so tender when we unpack this together and the person on the other end realizes, no, it's hard because I'm doing hard work. And there's nothing wrong with me. It's just hard, right?
It's not encouraged in traditional society so much to admit when things are hard, and to admit when you need help, and to admit that like, even I'm just not good at this. Like,
yeah,
it's not encouraged.
It's almost like a quote, like unquote, like easier to just tell yourself that you suck at everything and that you can't do it than admit and go find help. And that was one of my questions for you too. Were you encouraged as a small child with mental health things, like to get help or to go to therapy or anything like that younger?
Well, sort of. I mean, I'm a trauma survivor in childhood and in adulthood. And then there was stress in my family on top of it. So when I was 16, I was like causing a lot of trouble for my parents. But again, this was the 70s. Nobody's thinking about mental health. Nobody's thinking that a child who's behaving in ways that are troublesome to adults is trying to say they have a problem, is trying to say that they're in pain, right? So I was sent to therapy because I was a problem, but not because it was seen, like the context in which what was happening to me was not understood. And so it was more like, I've been in therapy on and off all my life, but it was only when the crap really hit the fan after a medical trauma that I ended up with a trauma therapist. And that was what changed. I was 30, in my very late 30s, early 40s. That's what changed for me, was having trauma therapy.
Yeah.
Because, and I don't think that's my family. I think my family really tried, but I also lived in a suck it up family. Suffering builds your character. Don't have needs, don't make trouble. We're already stressed enough. And again, my parents, like many parents, were doing the best they had with what they could at the time. But what they had was very limited. And so the impact was significant on my end, right? So it wasn't encouraged. But when the crap hit the fan and I got the right therapist, then it made all the difference.
Yeah. Also, finding the right therapist is so hard.
Yes.
And that is something I did not realize when I even first started on my own therapy journey. Like, I just thought, you find a therapist, they're going to know what to do. They're going to know how to fix me. And I hate the words fix me, but that was my mindset at the time.
But that's what we want, is relief.
Yeah, that's what we want to fix me.
Yeah.
And finding the right therapist is hard because
Yes,
as
it
you specifically mentioned, when you found the trauma therapist is where it
Yes.
helped. And I had no idea in the beginning that there was even different types of therapists. Now it feels obvious to me, but I feel like that it's
Well, I was not a therapist at the time. It was just an accident. I was in a very crisis moment. And I called a friend whose husband is a therapist. And I said, can you refer me to somebody? And they, I think because he kind of knew, he was a therapist and he had like a sense. And so the person he referred me to was the trauma therapist, but I didn't even know what I had been through was trauma at the time. I remember when my therapist slid the pamphlet across the table. There was a retreat she was doing for trauma survivors. And I was like, trauma? Me?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I could tell the stories of the things that happened, but I didn't classify that as trauma. Right? So it really does.
No
and
one
I have a link.
Yeah, I
Go
think
ahead,
that's
Kelly.
like, I think trauma is like a dirty word to some people. And
It can
so like you wouldn't say, no, I don't need trauma therapy. I haven't gone through trauma. That's a hard word. And so bless your friend's husband that went,
Right.
this actually is going to serve her the best without being like, you need a trauma therapist.
No,
Call
no,
her.
they just gave me the
No.
name. That's right. Yeah. I have a great blog post. I'll share the link and we can put it in the show notes around how to pick a therapist and how to interview a therapist. Because as you said, this is like no different from your VA. They are a key member of your support team and it has to be the right fit. So I'll share that with you and you all can put it in the show notes.
Please, because it really is. It can be a hard journey, and it's one of those for anyone listening. If you are on the journey of trying to find your therapist, utilize this blog as a resource. And also, if the first one doesn't fit, try a new one.
Well, this is
that
the
doesn't
thing.
mean they're all bad.
But we tend to blame ourselves again. If the therapy we're offered isn't working, it must be something the matter with me. And really, it's just not the right fit.
That's very real. Yes. Oh, I love that. Quick duality on the other side.
Yes.
What's a time where your mental health and your business felt at odds? I know you've maybe kind of even touched on it a little bit earlier with your story, but
anything like current that's happened that you're like, you know what? Yeah, recently with like this new iteration of your business.
Well, last year was the year from hell. Our dog died, our donkey died after several, I don't know if you all know anything, but like the vet has to come out to the barn And it was Easter weekend, and she came out 3 times that weekend to try and save the donkey, and the donkey died. It was really, and
Oh,
then sadly, my sister-in-law also died. She was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in February and died in August.
so
So
sorry.
it was a really tough year.
Yeah.
And this is, life and business are not separate for any of us. It just happened to be a particularly bad year for me last year. But I just want to make the point that life is lifing for all of us. And so this is not an exceptional story. And so last year was just, yeah, my mental health and my business were definitely not at odds, but my capacity was diminished. And so last year I focused mainly on serving my clients and really not on the rest of the business at all. And so this year is a somewhat of a recovery year, because when you don't do the marketing with the same intensity and frequency that you're used to, of course, the flow of clients
Slow.
changes.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is my recovery year. So it is a way in which they were at odds in that sense. Although I didn't feel at the time like I was fighting my business or anything. It was just clear
Mm-hmm.
that I had to let the rest of it go and just be with the clients and then be with myself and my beloved, because it was his dog and his donkey too, right? So it was
Yeah.
just, and his sister,
Yeah.
right? So yeah,
But firstly, I am so sorry for all of
thank
those
you.
losses.
Yeah,
That is hard, and there's no easy way to go through that, especially when you have all the responsibilities of I'm running a business and I have to serve these clients, and like I am having a
yeah,
shit day, but I still have to show up.
yeah,
Um, but I also really loved specifically how you worded diminished capacity, because that's what it is. I think we beat ourselves up a lot over I can't do it all. Life is lifing and there's a lot going on and I'm dropping balls and yada yada yada. And it's just a moment of like, we're all human. We all have only so many hours of the day. You have to sleep eventually, because the longer you avoid it, eventually your body will just make you do it because you're
yes,
gonna get
that's
sick.
right. Mm-hmm.
And I really like just the acknowledgement of it's diminished capacity. So what does my new workload look like with this diminished capacity? Because I know I can't
Yeah,
stop completely. This is my livelihood.
yeah,
But how can
yes,
I see forward?
yeah. A few years ago, this is going to make me really sound like a granny, but a few years ago, after about 2 years of difficulty, I was told I needed a hip replacement. And for 15 months while I was waiting for the hip replacement, I couldn't walk and I was having a really bad depression. It's astonishing how not walking has an impact. And I'm no athlete, but like being all of a sudden losing your mobility, right? That's another, like an identity kind of depression thing. And that was another similar situation where I had diminished capacity. And so,
Yeah.
but you see, this is the way life is. And this is why when people talk about balance in business, I think it's a myth. I prefer to use the word flow. And as
Mm,
long as over the long term, we can see that we flowed more or less equally as a whole through the various aspects, that it's not wrong to be flowing in one direction for a longer amount of time, right?
yeah. Yeah. I say a similar thing. I say harmony. I'm like, I don't really
Yes.
believe work-life balance. It's more of a harmony. Sometimes my
Yeah.
business is getting more of me and my personal is
Yeah.
getting less. Sometimes it's the opposite. And like it just has to harmoniously work out for you and your
Yes.
people.
Yes.
Because also someone else might look at my work-life harmony, balance, whatever they want to call it, and go, she works too much. But as long as it's working within my harmony and my own mental health and capacity,
Well, it's
it'll
your
help me
too
out in the
much according
direction.
to him.
Exactly.
Here's the thing. When we talk about, I learned this from my training in an addiction, that if something's a problem, we look at what have other people said, like people who are dear to you and matter, not what Joe on the street corner says, or not what the business productivity book or the mental health book says. Those close to you, what kind of feedback are you getting from them? Is it impairing your capacity to do your work? Now, for an entrepreneur, what we would look at is, how is my so-called overworking actually affecting productivity and the health of the business?
Mm-hmm.
Is it affecting my relationships, which is separate from the feedback? Like, am I able to show up the way I want to with my friends, my beloveds, my family, my children, right? And is it causing other consequences, like in my financial or other, is life unmanageable in other areas? And you can evaluate too much work. That's actually measurable. That's an assessment that anybody who's listening can use to determine, because again, too much is relative, too much according to whom and in relation to what.
100%. It's all subjective, and every person every person also has different individual responsibilities within their workday. Someone who has an entire family to take care of at home may have a little bit more personal responsibility than the single Joe Schmo who can live their 12-hour day dedicated to their
That's
business. They
right.
don't have that job going on.
Yeah, for sure. I sometimes feel guilty, if I didn't live with my beloved, I'd be working a lot more. And there are times when I'm like, "Ugh, I have to quit and go have supper because I'm in the flow and I'm like writing and but yeah, like again, it's all relative. It depends on your life and your lifestyle and your business and your capacity. It's
Yes.
okay. And in fact, we should be building businesses that are adapted for us and not the other way around.
Yep.
Say it louder for the people in the back.
Well, so
Yes.
many women come to business either because they're trauma survivors and they don't want to take shit from anybody else anymore, or because work was hostile, workplaces were hostile to them, or because they have other demands on their time that they want to balance, kids and beloveds, or maybe elder parents. But also, crap, the last one, which is the most important, and I forgot. Give me a minute to breathe. Oh yes, mental health challenges. Like people who can't, I know, and this is her public story. She tells it all the time. I know a copywriter who could not function outside her room, but it's a brilliant mind and a great copywriter. But like, just this is what's the matter with the 9-to-5 corporate world, is that it makes you fit in a box. And if you're not the box, then you're told you're shit because you can't contribute to society. She built a business around what she does that meets her needs. That means she contributes to society. She makes the multi-zeros that she wants to make. And I mean, she's doing better now than when she first started the business, but at the start, she never had to leave her room. That's
amazing.
what it's about.
And it was meeting her where she was at, where she started. And I bet you said, obviously, I don't know this human to know what the details of her personal life are now in any way, but I would bet you her being able to have the freedom and capacity to build a business that served her in the way she needed so that she could recluse when she needed or stayed in her room, it made her then able to grow into a, you know what, I can go to that coffee shop today,
Yes,
or I can do this,
100%.
because she found that safety and allowed herself to live in it. And then it got her out of the survival mode that had her frozen where she was.
Yeah, I don't know the inside either, but I agree with the theory, 100%.
Yeah.
Brooke and I were actually together recently, and we were handing out flyers for a client. And long story short, we passed a business that was full of cubicles. And I straight up turned to Brooke and said, I actually have PTSD looking in that room. And she was like, too. And so we just both had a moment of like, something as little as the fact that I couldn't work from home in this sense is so profound and so powerful that looking at a cubicle, I was like, we can't walk that.
We're gonna go.
Get me out of here.
It's it's exploitative and dehumanizing. The workplace is like, again, we come back to capitalism. How a boss makes money is on the difference between what they charge for the thing and what they pay you. That difference is your value being exploited for their profit. It's dehumanizing, and to be dehumanized is traumatizing to the nervous system, or can be.
I think this leans into the perfect next question of, what does mental hygiene look like for founders in this scenario? So we've gone through the trauma of being dehumanized and being, put to this value and overworking ourselves. And we're stuck in this fight, flight, freeze, burnout place where we're like, things I used to love, I don't even have the energy to love it.
Yeah.
What does mental hygiene look like to heal through that?
Well, there are many, it's very idiosyncratic, but I teach a structure that I believe helps people frame their idiosyncrasies in a way that makes it possible for them to have some handle on how they care for themselves. So I teach founders about KPIs for their mental health, key performance indicators for their mental health, lag and lead indicators. So lead indicators are the things that affect your mental health. Lag indicators is your mental health status, mental and emotional well-being in general, right? Because mental health has a longer spectrum, and we have like functioning but struggling, where on one end, and then straight up diagnosis and maybe needing very strong support at the other end. So it's a whole, and anyways, I won't get into that, but so you understand what it is in your world that has an impact on your mental and emotional well-being. For example, just a real simple example, sleeping. If you're at a conference and you're up late a few nights, and then your mood is in the toilet the coming week, and you're like, what is the matter with me? But if you know, wait a minute, if I don't get enough sleep, I know that my mood goes down, then that's a lead indicator. And so then you learn a lag indicator, let's say example, lag indicator, difficulty making decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have enough sleep. My mood is in the toilet. I don't have enough sleep. I have trouble concentrating. But what would happen is people would come to me and say, my mood's in the toilet. I have trouble concentrating. What's the matter with me? How was your sleep last week? Oh, right. So I teach people to identify what are the lag indicators are the symptoms that you're doing poorly and the signs that you're doing well. And to really take a look at, like, we know when we're doing poorly, usually because it hits us in the face, but we're not so familiar with how to know that we're actually doing well. So once you have a general idea of what are these things that impact you, then on a weekly basis, you can check in on your list of what affects me and how much of that was going on in the past, which explains how I am, how am I doing today? And then you can look at the next period of time and make a plan for, okay, so I do have to tweak my sleep because I fell down on that last week. Do I have my meals planned? No, I better order that Factor meal service because it's going to be a busy week and I have to eat. You know what I mean? So you can make your plan because it's not all about therapy.
Yep.
One of the things that you can know is that if I don't have enough support in my business, I can find it hard to concentrate and like to do the high level strategic stuff. So I've been stumbling along with a VA that isn't adequate. That's a lead indicator. The lag indicator is that I'm beginning to make mistakes in the business. So the evaluation is I need to do something about that. That's the assessment. And so the action is this week I'm going to call a recruiter and get them to help me hire a VA, right? So just like you would do the weekly check-in if you are familiar with the 12-week year or the 90-day year planning system.
90-day sprints, is it like a similar thing?
Somewhat similar, yeah. Just on a regular basis, you have a plan, you check in on your plan, you check in on what you said you were going to do, how you performed on that, and what you're going to adjust as a function of what happened. It's the same with your mental health. And so I would say, once you've got your list, I do it every Sunday. And some weeks I take more time and some weeks I take less. Sometimes I like to journal also, but really it only has to be 5 minutes of checking in on what the information that you know. How's my mood? How's my sleep? How's my, I don't know, I have chronic illnesses. How are my symptoms? All those kinds of things. Fine, good, keep going. Actually, I'm doing really spectacularly. What was it that happened last week that means that I'm doing so well? Let me do more of that this week. It's a 5 minute, maybe 10 check-in on a weekly basis. To me, that's mental hygiene.
I love that.
I love that.
I love that a lot. What stands out for me in that too is I always remind myself that motivation breeds more motivation, and the best way to get that first little stint of it is by doing the one thing. Like, so you went through
just take one step.
The symptom. What's the action? Like, the action is now, okay, great. I'm gonna reach out to a recruiter to help me hire someone, even though that's just one tiny little email sent. That little moment of, oh, I did it. Like, that little win will lead to the energy to continue to the second win. And I think that is a good reminder, because sometimes it feels, I know I'm guilty of it for sure. I can get stuck in the paralysis of overstimulation. I have 30,000 things to do. I don't even know where to begin. When in reality, you just start with one. It'll make number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5 easier.
Yeah, that sounds psychological science. I'm glad you shared it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And I love that framework. And 10 minutes once a week. Anyone can do that. So we chatted money. We chatted framework. When it comes to the first step someone can take to start healing their money story specifically, what are your thoughts there?
Well, in the trauma of money, we talk about decreasing shame, increasing discernment. And so the very first step, I'm just composing myself not to get all ranty, because
I love a rant, but I totally understand.
I have a thing with the idea of scarcity mindset. I think it's actually bullshit. Yes, 100% bullshit.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
The human,
the
human organism responds to scarcity with survival. scarcity of time, scarcity of love, scarcity of money, scarcity of food, scarcity of shelter. Scarcity is scarcity, real or perceived. You can still have money in the bank as an entrepreneur and feel like there's not enough money, right?
Yes.
Because you're in the scarcity psychology, which is not scarcity mindset. It's what the nervous system does under scarcity. And it's exclusively in an effort to enable you to survive a threat to your survival.
Mm-hmm. It's comfortable where you are right now.
Yeah.
Exactly. How would I say? Like the fear and panic, and people say, just change your money mindset, think abundantly. Well, you can't, because the psychology of survival, you cannot tell yourself there is no bear.
Yeah.
Right? Your body's going, bear.
There's a bear. I hear
And
you.
you can't tell yourself to relax. You can't tell yourself to calm down. You can't tell yourself not to be afraid, because that's your organism doing its best to survive. Okay. So the first thing I would say is there's no such thing as scarcity mindset. There is scarcity psychology that is a human impulse for survival. The mind behaves in specific ways, directs our behavior in specific ways under conditions of scarcity. It's not a change your mind thing, it's a nervous system thing. So, a simple shift that a person can use to move out of scarcity and into abundance is to first recognize I'm having a scarcity moment, right? I'm feeling fear about money. I'm feeling anxious about money. I'm worried there won't be enough in the bank. Whatever the story is, noticing, oh, wait, I'm feeling fear. I'm in a moment of scarcity. My body's responding. And then once you've like oriented yourself to what's happening, you can place a gentle hand on your heart space like this and say, oh, right. And you might find yourself taking a breath, right? Of course, I'm afraid. This is the normal response to conditions of scarcity. Every human responds this way. There's nothing wrong with me. And that opens you up from the tunnel of scarcity to a little bit wider view of like the turning toward yourself in kindness increases your capacity, lifts your perspective up, and already you can see how that's abundant, how this is abundant in comparison to that, right?
I love that. What I also love about that is you are pointing out the feeling portion of it. I am somewhat of an intellectualizer when it comes to all mindset stuff. And I think it is because I'm obsessed with it and I've studied it and you understand it. And I mean, not the most studied by any means, but I am very quick to know, oh, I have this belief or thought because this happened when I was 7. I'm very quick to get there. My therapist has even told me that. What I am very quick to skip is feeling it. In my head, I'm like, oh, but I know where it started.
Right,
so
right. Yeah.
I'm done with this now.
Yeah.
So I love your call out of create the awareness, because awareness is important. It starts there. But the moment of you got to feel it.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. And as a trauma survivor who lived, the first 40 years of her life up here, because in here is a shit show. If you've been through trauma, it's not, if you don't have the skills to go there, who is going to want to go there? Nobody.
No
right?
one.
Yeah. And so this is just the beginning of a skill development, right? This gentle moment of turning toward yourself and saying, I'm allowed to have the feelings I'm feeling. And in fact, these feelings are here for a good reason, right? And then coming back to the scarcity thing, once you're out of the tunnel of like, oh, fuck, and you're looking a bit wider, then you can start to think about what is it that I need to resource myself in this moment so that I can address the issue of not enough money in my bank account. So we don't, and again, it's a bypass, right? We just jump right to what can I do to fix the money? But until we can regain the abundance of our full capacity by making room for what's here, and sometimes it needs, like, see, I have an unfair advantage. I've been in recovery from trauma for 20 years, more than 20 years now. And so I've been practicing on the daily. So I'm talking about this like, oh, just do this. What I'm inviting people in is to a regular practice over and over and over again of doing this, because eventually it will support you then ultimately in being able to take the next step, which is, how do I get more resourced so that I can then address the problem? And I
Yes.
also have a blog post, I'll share the link, where I talk at length about this, turning scarcity into abundance using this kind of intervention and giving some more background and information. So we'll put it in the show notes so folks can benefit from that.
Amazing. Thank you. Do you have a common modality that you start all of your clients at? Like, is it literally as simple as just feel what's happening and let yourself know that it's okay? Or do you usually start them somewhere, or is it per person?
So you're asking about the therapeutic modality that I use? Is that what you're, yeah.
Yeah.
So the training I have is called inner relationship focusing, which doesn't mean anything to anybody, but what I call it somatic parts work. So we attend to the sensory. I support people in attending to their sensory data because, of course, as I just said, we aren't born knowing how to attend to this. It's overwhelming to most of us. So I'm there as the supporter and guide as a person develops the capacity to be with what's here. And then as we language for them what's there, I use the language of parts to help navigate as the person begins to understand what's happening on the inside and making meaning out of it so that then the wisdom can come out and reveal itself. So that's somatic. We use the sensory data, and then parts work to organize the information that comes.
I love that.
I love that too. That's really, really special. Honestly, every time you're saying anything, I'm like, wow, you must serve so many people in such a beautiful way. Because it is such a big moment for people. And
It is,
especially
yeah.
as you not only being trauma informed, but going through it yourself, I'm sure you make people feel so held and loved and safe and secure that anything that they're going through, you're like, okay, we're going to sit here and I'm going to hold you and I'm going to really make, not a prescription, but like a plan for you.
Yeah, we'll figure it out together. The plan will come from inside, actually, is what happens when a person can sit with this, because the wisdom is in the body. And when we can sit with the wisdom in the body in a certain way, it will reveal itself. And you're right. The very first thing is really this self-compassionate move and exercising. And I think really self-compassion, this is like the power move for entrepreneurs, is being able to be kind to yourself when you're in distress, so that then you can have the capacity to address the challenges that are in front of you.
Yes. Yes. And self-trust. I feel like self-trust is something a lot of us lack unknowingly. And when you can really learn how to truly trust yourself, I feel like it does become a little easier to be kind to yourself, because it's just a circle. It's all connected. It's realizing, no, wait, I've got me. When a lot of times we don't have that self-trust.
100%. I've got me. That is like the most precious gift. And you've really, like, after 40 years, you've named it for me. The shift that happened in my recovery was that I understood that I have my own back. Yeah.
You have a very calming presence, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah. I know that serves you in this business as well, and in therapy, because comfort with someone helping you through this is important. But yeah.
Well, comfort matters to the nervous system, right? That's what the nervous system wants. It wants comfort so that then your energy can be directed towards acting in the world and fulfilling your mission, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's all your nervous system wants: safety. It's its purpose. So to kind of start the end close, what is something that is lighting you up in your work right now? I know we've talked a lot about even the heavier sides of psychology and the hard conversations. What is something that's lighting you up in your work?
I've been frustrated because, in case you can't tell, I have a lot to say. And I've been, and
Guys, that's why we started a podcast.
Yeah. And, but my preferred modality is writing. And I'm frustrated that I can't write as much as I would like. And so what's lighting me up in my business is that this summer, because my marketing is all SEO and a Google ad, which means it doesn't depend on social media content, I've decided to let myself off the anxiety hook around social media stuff, leave that alone, and write. I'm very excited about the opportunity to just write.
I love that so much. So is it more like blog writing that you're doing for
Yeah,
your website?
yeah,
And then,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
amazing. Do you share that also on LinkedIn?
Yes. Oh, yes, I do. Yeah.
Lovely.
And I am working on a book. And the book is already written, and then I have to do the second go to get it ready to be sent to an editor. So that may happen this summer, but I don't want to put a box on it. I just want to have open space for writing and then to see what
Flow.
comes.
Your
Yeah.
flow. Yeah,
Flow, right?
we're
That's
keeping the
exactly
flow.
it.
Mhm,
Yes.
People
mhm.
can feel that passion. I am a huge energy proponent. We're all energy. So like whenever you give yourself
Yeah.
that time and space to be really excited about something and just like really fucking lit up and like I want to do this and I don't want to do that. So I'm gonna pick this. People feel that energy, and even if it is not the right move in a lot of people's eyes on how you should market something or how you should do something, I truly believe energy always wins in the end.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you have a way that you would prefer people to get in touch with you or learn about your research or honestly anything at all things you?
Sure. My newsletter, shula.ca, Shula, SHULA.ca, because I'm in Canada, /newsletter. That's
Amazing.
where conversations like this occur. And so that's the best way to get support. And also, if you click reply on any newsletter I send to you, I will write back.
She loves writing people.
I
Talk to her.
do.
I love that. My happy marketing email heart is so happy right now that that's how you do it. And I
Yeah.
love that.
We will put the information in the show notes for anyone listening to what you just said, to like sign on to the newsletter and know where to go for all of that. So we'll make it quite easy. We have one final question that we also like to end every podcast with.
Look at that sneaky smile.
I love a sneaky smile. It's a good one. It's a good one. If you could go back and sit across from yourself at the start of this journey, before this iteration of your business, before the iteration of your first business, before everything, what would you tell her?
I started working for myself in 1989. And I have had a number of businesses since then. And there are two things that me now would tell me then. One is take the risk, you can do it. And the second one is learn how to do business so that your business can be a business. That's why the other businesses I had prior to this one didn't survive. I didn't understand business. And so mostly what I didn't understand was marketing.
Yeah.
And I mean, in the late 80s, like it's not like it is today. You can't just go on. You couldn't. There was no online. There was no such thing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to find a course that taught you how to have a solo business, there wasn't just such a thing. But to have faith in myself that that you can take the leap and it will work out, and that you need to get some business training so that this will be a thing for you. Those are the two things I would have said to myself.
I love that.
Hindsight is always 2020. So I
Isn't it
love
though?
the question of like, if
Yeah.
only she knew, because I'm a big video journal person.
Oh
Especially
yeah.
I love to take a cringy video of myself crying or doing whatever I am that the world will never see. These are just for me, because there is nothing like being able to go back and look at that and go, oh my God, if only I could tell her, if only I could hug her. Like it makes me
Yes,
cry
yes,
just thinking about
yes.
it, because there's so much
Yeah.
that you learn through hindsight.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I'm sure all of us wished we had a me now for us then. Yeah.
Totally. Every day, honestly. Every day.
yeah.
But Shula, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your wisdom and your knowledge and your grace and space with us today, because it was really amazing to talk hard truths about money, hard truths about capitalism and trauma. And you made it in such a beautiful, safe environment that I hope and pray that people hear that and they feel that and that they'll go live on you.
This has been, I've been uplifted by the energy of having this conversation in this space with the two of you. I'm getting choked up about it. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode.
Please take some time, follow us on @FindYourFuse or email us at info@findyourfuse.com for all inquiries and all exciting things that you want to chat with us about. We love building this community and we love you. Take some time and leave a review. Anything above 5 stars, we'd love it. But really, we appreciate you and we appreciate your feedback in any form, because the more feedback we can get, the better we'll get.
Okay, love you. Bye.